I want to do a follow up to last week's video about social media brainwashing people and kind of give some actual thoughts and maybe some advice if you find yourself being addicted to it or if you. It's not just that, it's also if you find yourself getting involved in a lot of skirmishes on social media or whatever. I used to be one that was like that. Those of you who have been following me for a long time, you remember that I used to have quite a bit of a temper. And there were times back in 2017, 2018 where I would literally be on Twitter debating people, fighting with people for hours. Like I remember one Friday night, I'll never forget this. I forget what the topic was, something with Dragon Ball, I don't know. And I was going back and forth with somebody on Twitter. And once in a while I'll do this, but it's just not common. It's not something I do very often. But at this time in my life, I was doing it a lot. And I was on some medication that had just been prescribed to me. It was new medication I was taking at the time. And I think I kind of lost track of reality. And what happened was I'm on there and I'm debating somebody about something. Next thing I know, 5 hours have gone by. Literally 5 hours. I think I started at like 5 p.m. It was like 10 p.m. Something like that, like maybe 10:30. And I'm just like, what the hell? Like I remember that night I looked at and the time just flew by. And that's the thing. That's an example. Has that ever happened to you? I'm sure it has. You're on there and you're just talking to somebody, having a debate or a discussion about something, giving your opinion, and next thing you know, hours have gone by and you haven't been productive. You haven't been working. You haven't been doing something that's going to make you better, benefit you. You've just been wasting time. And ultimately, it is a waste of time. I think that too many of us spend far too much time talking to people that we're never going to meet, people that don't have our best interests at hand, people that in some ways we'd never get along with, or maybe we would get along with them, but because of this shield called the internet, we're never gonna like really have a real friendship. And I'm gonna say something that some of you guys are not ready to hear. I've said this before, and the problem is I'm only one man. These videos don't get as many views as my nerd content. Now, does that piss me off? A little bit. Not a lot, a little bit. Only because I think I have something much more important to say with these videos than anything else. The other videos I put out on any of my channels are done to pay the bills. And because I enjoy talking about nerd stuff too. But these videos to me are the ones that are the most important to me because these are the ones that really are meant to improve conditions and are meant to go deeper into not only my psyche, but to get y'all to think more, and we can always talk about things on a much more deeper adult level. The reality is that my birthday just passed, and next year I'm turning 40. And the older I get, the less time I have to bullshit. The more I realize that life is not very long. I would have never thought I'd be turning 40. Luckily, I don't look like I'm that old. I'm lucky because I don't drink, I don't smoke, I take care of myself. So I don't have like gray hairs and things like that. So I'm blessed. It could also be a genetic thing too. My mom had like dark hair even into her 60s. My mom didn't even start graying until like right before she passed. And that's good. That's good genetics, that is. That's not good that she passed, but it's good genetics. But what I wanted to say was the social media addiction thing. You really have to practice mindfulness. I've talked about mindfulness before a few years ago when I brought the speakdoms back because these come and go, it seems. I talked about mindfulness and I talked about how sometimes it's better to sit back and wait before you respond. You see, social media has a way of knowing what our triggers are. And people online always use the word triggered. Oh, you're triggered. The word trigger actually is a real thing in psychology. That's a real psychological issue. Or not really an issue, but it's a real thing. People have trigger words or things that trigger them. And the algorithms on social media are constantly meant to have us debating with each other. I mentioned that last week. I talked about how, with these algorithms, I talked about how They push this woke, anti-woke nonsense. They push, oh, this person's endorsing a trans person, and whenever you have something involving the LGBT community, that's going to instantly spark a fight online. I've noticed this. You're going to have the anti-woke people. You're going to have the people who are okay with it. You're going to have the pro-LGBT. You're going to have the ones that are tired of the agenda. That's what they say. I'm not saying that. That's what they say. You're going to have this civil war. And like I said, it's all meant to distract you. What you have to remember, and in case you're wondering, yes, I 100% believe this is a psyop. I totally think this is done on purpose, and I have evidence to prove it. I've talked to some people that are way smarter than me about this, and they've really educated me on how social media controls people. There's even a documentary called The Social Experiment on Netflix that everyone needs to watch because it's scary. The unfortunate thing is, no matter how big that documentary got, people are still addicted. People are still entirely too focused on caring what the other person thinks. I'm going to hit you with some reality right now. And I want you to really hear me out on this, because there are people listening to this who have egos who aren't going to understand. So I want you to practice mindfulness right now and control your ego and let me explain. Your opinion doesn't matter. It doesn't. Same goes for mine, same goes for everybody else. We've been tricked into thinking, due to social media, it's created this sort of narcissistic complex where we think that our opinion is actually valid because of how many likes we get, how many shares we get, how many people agree. It makes us feel in our own heads that our opinion matters more than the greaterness of the world. And ultimately it doesn't. Unless you're an actual person who has real influence. And let me tell you, very few people on YouTube, even though we're called influencers, very few have actual influence. And if you do, it's a very small community. I know for a fact I have influence in the Dragon Ball community, but that does not mean I have influence in other parts of the world. I can't influence militaries and governments to do things. I don't have that kind of influence, neither do you. So when you spend all day on Twitter complaining, or on Facebook complaining about how things are bad, you have a right to complain. Nobody says you don't, but remember that your opinion ain't going to change anything. It's not. If you go out there and you protest and you do things right, that could in time change things. But when you really think about it, not much has changed when you really break it down. There's been some changes throughout the years. People like Martin Luther King, there's been real change. Before we were born, of course. This was way back. But going on Twitter and bitching accomplishes nothing but waste time. It does it. Now, I say this as somebody who's done it before, so I'm not in any way pointing the finger at you without pointing the finger at myself. And sometimes we trick ourselves into thinking our opinion matters, when really it doesn't. Even if a lot of people agree, it doesn't mean it's actually going to change anyone's opinion, especially if they're stubborn. So when you're having these like left versus right, woke versus anti-woke debates, all you're really doing is you and your friends and the people who believe in you are ganging up on them, and then concordingly they are ganging up on you. Either way. And then you have this sort of invisible army on the internet going at it verbally. And what's really happening is you're both wasting your time. Unless you actually plan to be a politician, unless you actually want to go into politics, and I have a whole other idea. I may do a separate video about that, folks, because I don't think it's what people think it is. You really don't have a voice as much as you think you do. Now, the big illusion that the people who control the world have put on us is that they make us think that we have a voice. And in many ways, if we do get together and do things right, we do have a voice, right? Let me explain that. We do have a voice, and we can introduce change, but these things take years, if not decades, to actually stick. And going on social media and complaining or fighting with somebody who you perceive to be on the other side, that's a big mistake. So you need to practice not only discernment, but mindfulness. When you see somebody on Twitter fighting somebody else and you are compelled to jump into the debate and give your thoughts, think about this. Think about a couple things. Number one, do I really want to put my opinion out there and leave me open to attack by another group? Then I have to deal with those headaches. Number two, how much time am I going to waste doing that? And then the other person responds, and then I want to respond back, and then we're here. Next thing you know, hours have gone by. Do I really want to waste my precious time on earth? Some of you guys that are in your 20s, you don't understand. I was in my 20s yesterday. My 20th birthday was yesterday, meaning life goes by really quick. You understand? Unless you're in jail, life is quick. So do you really want to spend your precious time debating with someone who's probably never going to change? They're probably not going to change their mind. Now, there are persuasion tactics. There are ways to change people's minds who are open-minded enough. But that involves a level of maturity and understanding. And the problem is these kids that are being raised on the internet now, these Gen Z kids, a lot of them are never going to ever get that level of maturity until it's too late. And I know because I've seen it. A lot of these debates and a lot of these fights, a lot of it are with Gen Zers. Now, I'm not saying that just because you were born in that time period, you're automatically going to fall for that. But nowadays, and I want you to remember this, the truth of the matter is social media is raising our kids more than our parents are. Think about what I just said. The internet is raising kids now more than our parents are. We're spending more time on the internet than we are with our own families. That's the truth. That's the scary part of where we're going as a society. So do you really want to be a part of that? Do you want to carve your own path in life? Do you want to do something great, different? Or do you want to at least, isolate yourself and feed your family and take care of what matters? Or do you want to be like everybody else? Here's the reality, y'all. Everybody else, we try so hard to fit in, right? I stopped doing that a long time ago. I did have a time in my life where I tried to fit in. A few times in my life, I stopped. Because here's the reality. Most human beings, especially nowadays, are depressed, broke, easily triggered, and you don't want to be like that. You don't want, do you? I mean, do you really want to be like that? And the problem is, and it goes back to the brainwashing video, it's not even your fault. I'm not blaming you for getting caught up in this web. But you are responsible to get yourself out of it. I'm going to say that again. I'm not blaming you for getting caught up in this web because the web is there. This web of brainwashing is there for a reason, to get you caught up in it. But you are the one responsible for cutting yourself out of that web. So practice some mindfulness and think and say, should I really get involved or should I go do something productive? Let me go lift some weights. Let me listen to an audiobook about business. Let me read a book about psychology, relationships. Let me spend time with my brother, sister, mother, father, girlfriend. And the problem is, and this is the scary part, sometimes your girlfriend, quote unquote, or boyfriend or whatever you're into, sometimes they're caught up in the web worse than you are. I can tell you this, out of the last 3 exes I've had, women I've dated, 2 of them have been very caught up in this web. One of them really caught up in it. So caught up in it that it was causing problems in our relationship. Because when you're that addicted to the internet, and you're trying to spend quality time with someone, it really can hinder that quality time. And you don't want to be a zombie, dude. You do not want to be a zombie. Unless you want to be. If you're okay with being a zombie, that's on you. I choose not to live my life that way. And you have to also remember that the other person that you're about to attack is also caught up in the web. And to be honest with you, a lot of times they're influenced by social media in the wrong way. Because, like I said last time, if you take a liberal and you take a conservative, I'm using that as an example, and you sit them down face to face in real life and you have them debate their issues, one thing you will quickly realize is that the liberal and the conservative both kind of want the same thing. They want people to be better. They want to improve the condition of mankind. They just have different ways of going about it. But that's not what it's become now, y'all. It's become, oh, fuck the other side. They're a bunch of idiots, blah, blah, blah. That's what it's become. And then we have the extreme left and the extreme right, which ruin it for everyone. They ruin it because they're the ones that are the most vocal. So you can't even have like a mature debate with somebody anymore without it turning into a flame war. And the problem is that these Gen Z kids are being raised in that environment. So we're not going to be able to have honest, truthful, civilized debates and discussions about the future of our planet when you're being raised and indoctrinated and brainwashed into thinking the other side is evil. This is serious. This is one of the most important videos I've ever put out, I feel. And unfortunately, it ain't going to get no views. It might do 3,000 views max. I'm not mad about it. And I hope that the 3,000 people that watch it, or whatever, maybe less than that, I hope that they get something out of it, because maybe I might not be able to change the world, but if this information can help you be a better person, a better man, a better woman, a better husband, a better wife, a better father, whatever, then I've done my job, because that's why I do these videos. Notice that I do a lot of the self-help stuff in here, but I'm not charging you for it. I'm not saying, hey, join my class, join my master class on this. I don't even think I could do that right now. Maybe when I get older, I could put together a class about it. But right now, take it for free, dude. I don't see a point in doing that. I don't know if I'm ever going to do that, It's just not me when it comes to this stuff. So understand that the other person oftentimes wants what's best for everyone. They just might not know how to verbalize it, or they're caught up in the web of social media and the brainwashing. So what you have to do is disconnect. And when I say disconnect, I don't mean YouTube and things like that. You can obviously limit your time on here. And that may cost me money, but it is what it is. I'm not going to lie to you. And I say me as in, creators, but you still can limit your time and support the creator you love. And even if you spend time on YouTube, spending time on YouTube is still better than Twitter or Facebook, because Twitter and Facebook breed this type of negativity. Whereas the YouTube algorithm, it is set up that way, but you have more options for entertainment. You don't have to watch a Ben Shapiro or a Young Turks video. You can watch a video from Gaming Historian or Geekdom 101 or somebody like Pat Bet David or Roberto Blakes. There's so many options on this platform for content. You don't have to sit there and eat someone else's opinion if you don't want to. But the important thing with this speakdom is social media is brainwashing you, and ultimately you are responsible for having control over yourself. And if you can't have control over yourself, you are adding to the problem. You are making the problem worse, and it's going to end up ultimately wasting your time. Instead of spending time on the internet fighting with people all day, disconnect, play a video game, go to the gym, take a walk, do something else. Listen to an audiobook, something else, or even listen to speakdoms. It sounds like I'm promoting myself, but at least I'm going to give you, with these videos, I'm going to give you some concrete stuff. I'm going to give you something tangible. That's my message for today. Take care. See you next week.